So you're in a reading slump. How do you get out of it? I think everyone's been in a reading slump at some point in their life. You just seem to lack that motivation to pick up the next book that you had planned. And so you keep trying to force it, and you just can't get out of it. And you're wondering, what do I do? So I'm going to tell you 6 things that I've personally done that have helped me get out of book slumps. The first one I have here is probably my most useful one, and I think the one that works the best, at least for me, which is accept the slump. You cannot force yourself to do something you don't want to do. Lots of times we just need a break from reading, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think as readers, we set expectations for ourselves, a book goal, how much you want to read that year. And that's not the point of reading. The reading is supposed to be enjoyable. And so if you find yourself feeling like you're forcing yourself to read just so you can reach some goal or something you've made up in your own head, you're probably doing it the wrong way. So whenever I've had issues getting into a book, I'll take 5 days off and I won't read. Now, it doesn't mean you're not a reader or you're losing it or whatever. It's just taking a break. If I watch 5 movies in a row, I probably don't want to watch another. You do anything too much, eventually you're going to get burnt out. So it's a good time to take this moment and find some other hobby you like doing. Explore something else. Take a break from reading. Because it's in those moments when you feel like you have to read and you're forcing yourself to, that it's only going to get worse. The next thing I have up here is change your environment. Where you're reading, change it up. For example, I usually read in my bed. So if I'm on my phone all the time in my bed, I'm going to have moments where I feel like I'm going to go reach for my phone before that book. So just changing where I read sets that new boundary in my head. Obviously, great places to do this is like a library or just a bookstore or a cafe where you get coffee in the morning. However, you don't have to go that far to change your environment. Read in your living room, read in a different room, read outside in your front yard, your backyard. Just having a different area where you can read can make all the difference in getting out of that slump. The third reason I have is probably the most obvious, which is read something else. Get out of your comfort zone and read something you don't usually read. Because I'm telling you, from someone who does a lot of book challenges and reads a lot of different things, but all at once, it can get really tiresome reading the same type of books. So if you find yourself reading 4 romances in a row and you're feeling burnt out, go to a sci-fi, go to a fantasy, read nonfiction for the hell of it. Read anything else that you usually wouldn't read. Because a lot of times the reason you feel that slumped is nothing's changing. You're reading the same kind of themes, settings, and sometimes it just takes that one change to change your mindset. It's also just a great way to explore your book habits and what your likes. I never was that huge on sci-fi, but then I started reading more space books because I was getting sick of that dark fiction, and I found I absolutely love them. And at the end of the day, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. But it's important to try different things and change what you're doing. Revisiting your favorite book or book series. We all have our favorite books, favorite book series we've read before, and chances are you've probably reread it before. A lot of times though, when I'm feeling burnt out, going back to those ones I know I love is a surefire way to get me to go reading again. Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of my favorite books. It's one of the ones I've connected to the most. I've read it probably 3 times now, and I never get tired of it. Going to something that's familiar, that you know the story, you know the characters, you know what to expect, is an easy way to know that I'm going to enjoy this and I'm not going to have a problem rereading it. So if I'm getting flustered, I'm not reading the books I want to, I'm not connecting to them, I'll pick up Perks. I'll do it again. I don't care. And it's sometimes reading those books that actually fires us up again to read new books. I feel the exact same way about the Hunger Games series. I've probably read it 4 times and I love it every time, and it makes me pick up the next book after I'm done with the series. Next up, we have change your format. You're reading right now usually, but there's nothing wrong with trying to audiobook something instead. I've always had the belief that audiobooking is just the same as reading. I get I'm not physically reading something, but I'm still ingesting a story and I'm learning themes, I'm learning about characters. And sometimes just having that little change from actually reading to just listening to something is all you need to get out of that rut that you're in. Currently, I'm actually audiobooking Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, and I've been absolutely loving it. I think if you are going to audiobook anything, audiobook things that are directly audioed from the author. John Green has some nonfictions that I really loved as well. Those are good picks. But because audiobooking is different than reading, it's really good to get you out of that little hole that you're in. Not to mention, it's actually easier to do than just reading because you can multitask as you're audiobooking. Because at the end of the day, I think it can enhance the experience of reading sometimes. So all those other ways I've said so far have been more like individual ways for you to go about this. But this way is probably the funnest way, which is make it social. Book clubs are probably the most common way people do these things, which is involve other people in your book reading. Having a fun thing with a group of friends where you're all agreeing to read a certain book and then talk about it after is just the motivation someone needs to get out of a reading slump. For example, not too long ago, I read Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I read it for a book club. I probably wouldn't have read that book on my own, but doing it in the book club made it significantly more fun for me. And so it was nothing about being in a book slump. It was like, oh, great, I get to talk about this with a bunch of cool people. Also, it's one of those things where it's like a pro on pro, which is like, who doesn't like just hanging out with a group of friends? Obviously, book clubbing isn't the only way to make book reading more social. Sometimes it's just reading a different book next to your friend and then talking about it with them. Sometimes that's all it takes. In fact, there's a lot of people online who do these online book clubs where a huge group of people read one single book and they all talk about it in some group chat or a voice channel, anything like that. These are all great ways to make book reading more fun and therefore get you out of that book slump. Book reading is supposed to be fun. And so if you feel a little slumpy-ish, then maybe trying one of these new things or just taking a break from reading is the way to go about it. I hope you all found this useful. I hope you use one of these for yourself. If you're in a book slump, do what you can. Just have fun with it though. All right, good luck reading out there, guys. Farewell.